Well, it being the end of the holiday season and the end of the year, if you're watching this video when it was released on December 26, 2021, it's still a time to celebrate. It's still a time to have holiday cheer. Why is that? Well, because today is Boxing Day! Yay! I don't know what Boxing Day is. I think it's something from Canada. Well, either way, it was a great year. I mean, anything would be better than 2020, but I do feel a lot of gratitude for my friends, my family, my toy collection, this channel. I really do, and I think feeling gratitude, especially at the holiday season, is very, well, not just gratifying, but appropriate. And it's great to feel positive about all of the positive changes we've had in the world. Are things perfect? Absolutely not. But they're damn good. I mean, I got COVID this year, and fortunately it was a very light case, and I flew in some doctors from 1862, and they were able to help me out, and I wound up only really getting fatigued and made it through, thank goodness. So I'm very grateful for my health. And I'm really grateful even for my office, which I finally set up this year after living here in North Carolina for 3 years and sitting on the floor for a while. I was like, I'm going to get a desk and a chair so I can actually work in my office. What a concept. And I love being surrounded by all my stuff. So I want to talk today, feeling so grateful at the end of the year, about dream toys. And I don't mean, toys that are called dream toys or toys that help us to fall asleep. Not that I still don't sleep with my glowworm, but that's between me and glowworm. We're not talking about that right now. But I'm more talking about those toys that, as collectors, we really want. For example, the Imperial Dignitary from Star Wars, from the vintage Kenner line, is pretty much top of my list as far as a figure I want in the modern line. And though this Imperial Dignitary doesn't count, it's not the same character, because the idea is to have all 92 or 96 or 100 or 120, I know, do your own count, people, of how many figures were in the vintage line, and we want to recreate that. So I want that guy right there, the one that was in the vintage line. So that's sort of my current dream figure for Star Wars. And I have dream figures for other lines. People on this channel know that I'm a huge proponent of getting Spot in the line, or doing an accurate Darkhawk from 1991, 1992, versus the sort of era-bashed one that was put out in that Guardians of the Galaxy line a few years ago. Close, but not spot on. I've gotten dream figures, though. I have gotten figures that I've really wanted, like this super articulated Savage Dragon figure that Toy Biz put out in their Legendary Heroes line at Walmart, made by the same team that did the first line of Marvel Legends. It's kind of one of the best Marvel Legends figures put out from Toy Biz since it was at the tail end. And, I've had other Savage Dragon figures, but not quite as good. I mean, this one from McFarlane wasn't totally on model, and the articulation was a little lacking. The fin was definitely off model, although the base was really cool, especially because it had the skeleton of Baby Dark Lord right from issue 76. So that was, pretty cool. And even going back further, there were other ones from Playmates, but again, lacked articulation, though we still haven't gotten a good Cop Savage Dragon. Either way, glad to get one. There have been other figures, too, that have been dream figures that I've been able to collect over the years. For example, as a kid growing up with the original Star Wars trilogy, episode 4, 5, and 6, as they're known now on Disney+, I hugely liked the Rebel pilots, and I made it a specific goal to get every Rebel pilot. I wanted to get all of them from the Battle of Yavin. Ones from Return of the Jedi or Empire from the Snow Speeders from the Battle of Hoth were cool too, as were A-Wing and B-Wing pilots, but I wanted the Battle of Yavin, and I've got him. I've got every single one. Granted, Red 9 has never been released, but he was actually never seen on screen. We just heard his voiceover, and for years I thought he was on screen until Adam Paulus corrected me. So, yay, he's never coming out. And I actually keep a list in my book, the same book that I keep a list of the figures that have been released in order, of figures that I've wanted to get, and I check them off as they go, like, Mosep or Not Greedo, meaning Beto, the guy from Jabba's Palace. And I've also kept that list for Marvel Legends as well, checking off figures as they go and noting the ones that I want, so I can kind of keep track of, sort of who's a pre-bought figure, if you will, meaning when it comes out, I'm getting it. Well, for the longest time, my number one figure that I wanted was Biggs Darklighter. And not Biggs Darklighter the pilot, but Biggs Darklighter the Tatooine dashing rogue guy from the deleted scenes. And some of you may know exactly what I'm talking about, others not so much. So let's kind of jump in because it's an interesting story. So Biggs Darklighter, Luke's best friend from Tatooine, grew up, got reunited, especially in the special edition, and they both fought in the Battle of Yavin, and not both of them made it out. I bet you can guess which one didn't. Well, we did get a Biggs Darklighter action figure in Power of the Force 2, and when this came out, I was blown away, because I was like, wow, I cannot believe we actually got a Biggs, and it's an X-Wing gear, which was the first X-Wing figure we got, since the Luke figure was in his Hoth Snowspeeder outfit, even though on package he was called X-Wing. Go check it out, nerds. Well, I was excited to get this, and I figured this was the only Biggs we would ever get, period. Now, the Tatooine version of Biggs is a little different, and there were a few entry points to learning about him. He basically came to Tatooine, spoke to Luke about joining the rebellion, and then that paid off later on. And there were quite a few scenes shot with him, and this is where Luke's floppy hat comes from, and the whole Anchorhead station scene, when Luke says, I wanted to go into Anchorhead and, hang out with my friends. This is what he was talking about, was hanging out with Biggs and his friends, and, well, his sort of frenemies, like Carrie and, or Cammy, excuse me, not Carrie. That's Carrie Fisher. Cammy and Deke and Fixer and etc. So there are also some deleted behind the scene footage shown of Biggs in this roguish outfit. But the number one way I believe that people knew this scene, and I know I did personally, was from the Star Wars storybook. So, yeah, raise your hands if you had this as a kid. This was a gem. I really need to rebuy this. I'm sure I can get it off Amazon or eBay pretty cheap. It was basically the whole story of Star Wars, but told with text and images from the movie. Versions for Empire and Return of the Jedi soon followed, obviously, after those movies came out. And even though the covers didn't all match one style, I remember having all three of these in a slipcase, and they were hugely beloved. You got images of all the main characters, explanations of who they were. This was sort of, before we had the internet. Note Luke is in his black shirt, which was cut from the movie because he was given a yellow jacket to pop more in the scene. And even things like the Cantina aliens were given a spotlight, and you could see characters that didn't quite make it on screen, but at least now you could, or they were on screen, but it was fleeting, shall we say, and now you could see them in all their Cantina glory. Well, there was one particular two-page spread, and by two-page spread I mean the right side of the page, showing Luke and Biggs on Tatooine, chatting it up, the deleted scene where Luke and Biggs came back to Tatooine after being trained by the Empire and talked about jumping ship. So, if you're familiar with the concept called the Mandela effect, it's basically a concept where you remember something incorrectly, but it's not just that you do, it's that a huge number of people do. And a huge number of people have talked about for years thinking the big scene was in the movie. Now, Nelson Mandela, if you're not aware of him, is an action figure that was released a few years ago in a deluxe edition, 12 inches tall, soft goods, came in a deluxe window box. But besides being an action figure, he was also an actual person. He was the president of South Africa, and not just hundreds, but thousands of people around the world remember him dying in the 1980s and seeing his funeral on TV. Now, he didn't die for decades later, but this phenomenon of people remembering incorrectly went on to become, called the Mandela effect, named after him. And there's a lot of examples, like Rich Uncle Pennybags having a monocle. He does not. Or Fruit Loops being spelled F-R-U-I-T. It is not. So there are a lot of examples of the Mandela effect in film, where hundreds, thousands, millions of people remember movies incorrectly. Like this scene where Darth Vader asks Princess Leia to pull his finger. That's not what happened. He was actually just pointing at her. No, I'm kidding. That's not really the version of the Mandela effect. It's actually this one. Luke, I am your father. Yeah, that line that everyone in pop culture knows, which is totally wrong. He says, no, I am your father. Not Luke, I am your father. But a lot of people, millions, remember it incorrectly. Hence the Mandela effect, which is also C-3PO. A lot of people don't know that 3PO has a silver leg and refuse to believe it, saying he always had gold legs. And that brings us to the big scenes. There are so many people who talk on forums, online, at conventions of seeing the big scenes in the movie when they were little, or on VHS in a theater, or, whatever. But they weren't. They never were in the movie. They were deleted. But because of this two-page spread, or, well, right side of a double, right, this one-page spread in the storybook, I believe that caused this effect. Of course, there were other ways of being introduced to Tatooine Biggs from, without having the storybook. The Marvel comic had him, and the radio drama, of course, the entire first episode takes place on Tatooine, and it's about Biggs and Luke. Which, by the way, if you have not listened to the radio drama or watched my video about it, do so. It is amazing, so worth your time. Okay, enough plugging the radio drama and its awesomeness. The Biggs scene was only first actually legally, legitimately released on a a CD-ROM set called Star Wars Behind the Magic, which came out in the late 90s. This included several deleted scenes. The Biggs scenes included, there's a Cammy and Fixer in the background, his sort of frenemies. But it was grainy, it was in black and white, it wasn't 100% cleaned up, but at least we could see it. It wasn't until the Blu-ray release that we actually got the scenes in color and cleaned up a bit. And this was really the first time you could actually watch all of the full Biggs, Luke, and Anchorhead deleted scenes and watch them looking up in the sky and seeing the Tantive battle with the Devastator. And, of course, Luke and Biggs getting drunk outside of his house. And no, just kidding, that didn't happen. They just talked about, joining the Empire together and running away. You also got other cool deleted scenes on the Blu-ray, the notorious Tatooine sandstorm shot that also spawned several action figures. But there are some deleted scenes we still haven't gotten, such as the Imperial Guards force-choking Moff Gigerod, or of course that shot from the beginning of Empire when Vader goes around a golf course for a while relaxing before he decides to renew his hunt for Luke Skywalker. So, yeah, whether or not these books are responsible for this particular Mandela effect, they're obviously, the radio drama, the comic, I think they definitely hammered it home, because so many people are convinced this scene was in the movies. And again, it wasn't. And, that's probably also why we never got an action figure of Biggs like this in the vintage line. Although, how cool would that have been? So, this figure, because of so many wonderful memories of flipping through the book as a child and seeing this mysterious page that didn't jive with the movie, this was my #1 requested figure, personally, for years. And when this Biggs came out in Power of the Force 2, getting it, I was like, oh, this is so cool. I mean, I'm sure we're never going to get Tatooine Biggs, but at least we got a Biggs. But man, I really, really, really hope they do Tatooine Biggs one day. And I sort of never stopped hoping for that, even though I felt like, man, a deleted scene, like a fifth-tier character that dies in the first movie that casual people don't even know. And we wound up getting other Biggs Darklighter in his X-Wing outfits updates, much like almost every character from Power of the Force 2 got updated. Well, except for, 88 didn't, or a few others. Well, the ASP droid, that one didn't either. Trying to think of some others. Either way, we got him. He finally came out. The 30th anniversary line brought us Biggs Darklighter from Tatooine, complete with coin and no knee articulation, but he had otherwise pretty good vintage series articulation quality. The cape tended to rub off on the back of his jacket, but that kind of faded over time, and you could erase it with an eraser. The one flaw, I kind of actually wish the cape wasn't cloth. I was expecting it to be more rubbery. My one disappointment in the figure, but hey, I had my dream figure, and he's everywhere in my office. I bought a ridiculous number of Biggs figures, and I have packaged ones, I have loose ones. They tend to pop up on pretty much all of my shelves. So, hey, when you spend that long dreaming of a figure, of course now I want a vintage version in the retro line, and, once you've been mollified, right, you just switch your, must list to wanting everything else, like getting a legitimate backwards carded vintage series version of Biggs where he gets knee articulation, which of course, he needs from all the fighting scenes. And of course, it'd be great to get Mrs. Biggs, because the world needs more redhead action figures. Jean Grey is, just not enough to do it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd love to know what dream figures you were rewarded with, that you waited for and finally came true, and what it was like. Share your experience, your thoughts, your toy collecting with me on the comments, and everyone else on the channel. Love to hear from you, and I'll see you guys in the next video.